All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a trip down the rabbit hole with The Matrix.
Oh, excellent choice.
Yeah, you've given me a fascinating mix of sources for this one. We've got a German article, really captures the buzz around the film back in '99. We've
Mhm.
got Wikipedia for all these essential facts and figures.
Of course.
And then, to really get philosophical, we got some great pieces from Roger Ebert and Open Culture.
It's going to be a fun one, a real mix of perspectives.
It is. So our mission today, if we choose to accept it, is to trace The Matrix's legacy. From that mind-blowing debut to the ripples that are still felt today, especially with all things tech.
I think we're more than equipped for that mission. We'll go behind the scenes, delve into the philosophy, and maybe even uncover some surprises along the way.
Oh, I love surprises. Okay, let's jump right in. That German article I mentioned, it paints a really vivid picture of 1999. Calls The Matrix a much-needed antidote, because it came out, get this, just 10 days after Shakespeare in Love swept the Oscars.
Oh, wow. I remember that year. A very different kind of film winning all the awards.
Right. So you can imagine The Matrix landing like this total shock to the system.
Yeah,
Do you think audiences were really craving that kind of mind-bending action?
absolutely. The late 90s had some visually impressive films, for sure. But The Matrix went beyond that. It wasn't just spectacle. It was a story that messed with your head, made you question what was real. And the action, well, it was unlike anything we'd seen before.
Totally. It was like they reinvented action cinema.
Okay, for anyone who hasn't seen The Matrix yet, or maybe needs a little refresher, let's do a quick recap. Machines have taken over the world. Humans are trapped in this simulated reality, the Matrix serving as batteries. And then there's Neo, our hero, played by Keanu Reeves, who's the potential savior of humanity.
Right, the one, as they call him. But it's so much more than just a cool sci-fi concept. The Wachowskis, they wove in these really profound questions about what it means to be human, what's real, what's not. And these themes, they hit even harder now in our tech-saturated world. I know what you mean. It's like The Matrix predicted our whole obsession with virtual reality, the metaverse.
Yeah.
All this blurring between digital and real that we're dealing with every day.
Exactly. Back in '99, asking what is real seems like a philosophical thought experiment. Now it's almost a daily question thanks to technology.
And let's be honest, one of the things that really blew everyone's minds back then were the visuals.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Groundbreaking.
I'm talking about bullet time. It was revolutionary.
It really was.
I mean, that moment when the action slows down, the camera seems to move around a frozen moment. It was like seeing a superhero in real life.
Right. And it wasn't just a cool trick. It was a way to visualize heightened consciousness. You were literally seeing the world differently, experiencing a different perception of time and space.
Exactly. And even the color scheme, that sickly green tint inside the Matrix versus the cool blue of the real world, that was intentional too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Every visual detail in The Matrix was carefully considered, designed to pull you into the story.
Okay, get ready for some fun facts from behind the scenes, because our sources are packed with them.
I'm all ears.
All right, first one. Believe it or not, Keanu Reeves wasn't the first choice for Neo. The Wachowskis actually wanted Johnny Depp for the role.
Wow, I can't even picture that. That's a very different Neo.
Right. It makes you wonder how the whole film would have felt with him in the lead. They also considered Will Smith, Nicolas Cage, even Brad Pitt and Val Kilmer.
Quite a range. What about Leonardo DiCaprio? Wasn't he the hottest name in Hollywood after Titanic?
He was offered the role, but apparently after Titanic, he wasn't keen on doing another big visual effects film.
Makes sense.
So yeah, in the end, it feels like fate brought Keanu to the role.
And destiny brought him to that grueling 4-month training regimen. Yuen Wu-ping, the legendary action director from Hong Kong, he insisted on it.
Yeah, they had to be in top shape. The sources talk about those intense fight sequences and the insane level of choreography.
Yuen Wu-ping was known for his demanding style, but the results speak for themselves. Those fight scenes are still mind-blowing even today.
Oh, absolutely. But all that training, it wasn't without its hiccups. Keanu suffered a pretty serious neck injury during filming.
Oh no, that must have been a major setback.
It was. They had to shuffle the shooting schedule around, film less physical scenes while Keanu recovered. And it wasn't just on-set injuries they had to deal with. Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus, right? He's talked about some really unsettling experiences with racism while filming in Sydney.
That's really disheartening to hear, especially in the context of a film that's all about fighting oppression.
It really highlights how those real-world issues, they can impact even seemingly escapist environments like movie sets.
A powerful reminder.
Okay, ready for one last fun fact?
Always.
Remember that iconic green code raining down the screen?
Oh, yeah, hard to forget that.
It's not just random gibberish. The production designer, Simon Whiteley, revealed it's actually Japanese sushi recipes.
Wait, what? Sushi recipes? That's amazing. It's like a hidden message you'd never know just by looking at it.
Right. I love details like that. It shows the thought they put into every single element of the film. Okay, so we've explored the impact, the visuals. Now let's dive into the deeper stuff. The layers of meaning that have kept people talking about The Matrix for decades.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Both Wikipedia and that open culture piece point to Plato's allegory of the cave as a major inspiration for the film.
Oh, for sure. It's like The Matrix is a modern retelling of that classic philosophical story.
You know, about being chained in a cave,
Yeah.
only able to see shadows on a wall, thinking that's reality, when there's a whole world outside.
Right, exactly. And it makes you think, how much of what we perceive as reality is just shadows, carefully constructed images and narratives that might not be the whole picture?
It's a powerful analogy, especially in our world of social media and curated online personas.
We're bombarded with images and stories, but are those the whole truth? Or just shadows on a wall? It's a question The Matrix makes you ask.
It does. And this idea of a deceptive reality, it's not new, right? Centuries ago, Descartes had his evil demon thought experiment, that a powerful being could be tricking us, making us believe in a false reality.
The Matrix taps into those age-old questions and brings in even more recent thinkers, like Jean Baudrillard, whose ideas about the desert of the real are so central to the film.
Oh, yeah. His book, Simulacra and Simulation, even makes a cameo.
Baudrillard was saying that our media-saturated world was blurring the lines between real and simulated, that we were living in a world of images and copies without originals.
And that line, Morpheus says, "Welcome to the desert of the real." How much more real does that feel now with our curated feeds and online identities? Do you ever feel like you're living in that desert where the line is totally blurred?
I think that feeling is becoming more and more common as technology advances, for sure. It's up to us to stay aware, to keep questioning what we see and experience.
It's like The Matrix gave us a warning, and now it's up to us to heed it. But it wasn't just a philosophical exercise. The Matrix also revolutionized action filmmaking, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about special effects. It was a whole new style. That blend of intricate fight choreography with gravity-defying moves, what we call wire fu.
Inspired by Hong Kong action films, right?
Exactly. And The Matrix brought that style to mainstream Hollywood.
With Yuan Wu Ping's incredible choreography, his influence is undeniable.
It's hard to imagine action films today without The Matrix. Think of all those superhero battles, those faster-than-a-speeding bullet moments. The Matrix made them visually possible.
It really did. And it paved the way for the whole superhero boom we've seen in the 2000s. It's crazy how much one film influenced things.
It is.
And speaking of influence, we can't forget the red pill, blue pill choice. That's become such a powerful symbol.
It has, hasn't it?
It's shorthand for choosing awareness, for seeing the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. It's been adopted by all sorts of groups and movements, some harmless, some, well, less so.
It's fascinating how a simple concept from a film can take on such a life of its own.
It's a reminder that the ideas in The Matrix, they go beyond the screen. They tap into something deeper, something that resonates with people on a fundamental level.
Definitely.
So we've seen how The Matrix was more than just an action flick. It was a cultural phenomenon that started conversations about reality, technology, and choice. Conversations that are still going strong today. But we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover, so let's continue our deep dive into The Matrix.
Sounds like we're just getting started.
We are?
Yeah, layers upon layers, it seems. The more we dig into The Matrix, the more we find...
It's like peeling back an onion.
Yeah.
Or, well, plugging into a whole other reality.
Exactly. Speaking of layers, Wikipedia mentions some really interesting what-ifs about the casting. Like for Morpheus, they considered Gary Oldman and Samuel L. Jackson. Can you imagine?
Whoa. That's wild. Either of them would have brought a totally different energy to the role.
Right. It's fun to think about how that might have changed the whole dynamic of the film.
I know. And for Trinity, they were specifically looking for a relatively unknown actress. Which is interesting, considering how iconic Carrie-Anne Moss became in the role.
She really owned it, didn't she? That blend of strength and vulnerability, perfect for Trinity.
Absolutely. But the one that really got me was about the role of Switch. Apparently, in the original script, Switch was supposed to be female in The Matrix, but male in the real world.
That's fascinating.
Right. Adds a whole other layer to the film's exploration of identity and how we perceive ourselves. The sources say they ended up scrapping the idea, but it makes you wonder what the Wachowskis were going for.
It could be seen as a subtle nod to gender fluidity, something that's even more relevant today, as we challenge those traditional ideas about gender.
It's like The Matrix, even though it was set in this futuristic world, it was also grappling with real social issues of the time.
Absolutely. And those issues, they're still relevant today, aren't they? In our conversations about identity, representation, being true to yourself, it's all connected.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about how The Matrix blew everyone's minds back in '99 with the visuals, the story, but I'm curious about the lasting impact. Did it change how we view the world? On a deeper level, I mean.
I think it definitely brought those big philosophical questions into the mainstream. The Matrix made it cool to talk about Plato, Descartes, Baudrillard, all these heavy hitters, but within the context of a really entertaining, action-packed film.
Right. It wasn't some boring philosophy lecture. It was an experience, a wild ride that made you feel those ideas.
Exactly. And I think that's what made it so powerful. It gave people a new way to think about things, a framework for understanding these concepts that maybe seemed intimidating before.
So in a way, it made philosophy accessible.
It did. It sparked discussions, got people arguing, debating. Even if you didn't agree with everything, you couldn't help but think about it.
And people are still thinking about it. It's analyzed, debated, even memed. It's woven itself into our culture.
That's the mark of a truly impactful film, isn't it? When its ideas continue to resonate, to spark new conversations.
It is. And it's interesting how those philosophical ideas, they intersect with religious and mythological elements in The Matrix.
Oh, absolutely. You can't ignore those parallels, can you?
Right. I mean, Neo, he's the chosen one, the savior figure, echoes of Christ, Buddha, all those classic mythological heroes.
Who sacrificed themselves for the greater good. It's a story that's been told and retold throughout human history. And it still resonates on this deep level, even if we don't consciously recognize those connections.
It's like our brains are wired for these kinds of stories. And The Matrix, it taps into that ancient wiring while also blowing our minds with cutting-edge technology and ideas.
It's that blend of the familiar and the unknown that makes it so compelling, so rewatchable.
And let's be real, the action sequences don't hurt either.
Oh, of course not. The bullet time, those fights, pure adrenaline.
And beyond the spectacle, they actually had a huge impact on how action films are made. The Matrix ushered in this new era of wire fu, those intricate gravity-defying moves.
Yuan Wu-Ping's influence is undeniable. He brought that artistry, that athleticism to Hollywood.
And those techniques, they evolved, they spread.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the epic superhero battles we see now. You can see The Matrix's DNA in so many of them.
It raised the bar for what was possible, showed filmmakers that action could be more than just explosions and car chases. It could be art.
Speaking of art, we can't forget the music. Don Davis's score is just incredible.
Oh, it's iconic, isn't it? That blend of electronic and orchestral, it's so unique. Perfectly captures the mood, the intensity.
It's like a sonic landscape that takes you right into the heart of the film, amplifying the tension, the wonder, even the heartbreak.
It's more than just background music. It's an essential part of the storytelling.
It is. What I find so fascinating is that Davis was a classically trained composer, but he embraced those electronic, almost industrial influences for The Matrix.
It's a really interesting blend of styles. You wouldn't necessarily expect it, but it works perfectly.
It does, and the sources mention that he had a really collaborative relationship with the Wachowskis. They gave him creative freedom, but they also had very specific ideas about how the music should function.
That's the sweet spot, isn't it? When you have that trust, that shared vision, and you can really push the boundaries.
Absolutely, and I think you can hear that in the final score. It's so deeply woven into the film. It's part of the experience, not just an afterthought.
It's like the heartbeat of the film, pulsing with energy and emotion.
Okay, so we've gone deep on the visuals, the story, the philosophy, even the music. But ultimately, it all comes back to the experience, right? The Matrix's ability to transport us to another world.
To a world that's both familiar and utterly alien. A world that makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Exactly. And it does it with such style, energy, and imagination. Even after all these years, it still feels fresh, exciting.
A true masterpiece of sci-fi.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it's important to acknowledge that The Matrix isn't perfect, right?
No film is, I suppose.
Some critics found the dialogue a bit clunky at times, maybe the acting a little stiff in places.
That's fair.
But honestly, those are minor quibbles. Its achievements, they far outweigh any flaws.
Oh, absolutely. It broke new ground, pushed boundaries, and left a lasting mark on cinema and pop culture.
It did. So, speaking of its place in cinema history, Where do you think The Matrix fits within the larger world of science fiction? How did it contribute to the genre's evolution?
Well, it's definitely drawing on a rich tradition, isn't it? I mean, from those classic Philip K. Dick novels to visually stunning films like Blade Runner, The Matrix is building on those foundations.
But also adding its own unique flavor to the mix.
Right. It takes those familiar sci-fi tropes, dystopian futures, AI, questioning reality, and then it injects this Eastern philosophy, those martial arts elements, and this visual style that was unlike anything we'd seen before.
It's a hybrid for
Yeah.
sure. And it connected with a wider audience,
Mm.
people who maybe weren't diehard sci-fi fans. They got drawn in by the action, the visuals, the whole package.
And its influence, it's undeniable. You see it everywhere, in movies, TV shows, video games, even fashion and music.
It's become a reference point for how we think about technology, reality,
Mm.
even human potential.
Hmm.
It's seeped into our cultural DNA.
And let's not forget the cool factor. I mean, the black leather, the sunglasses, the slow-motion gunfights. The Matrix is undeniably stylish.
Oh, yeah, it definitely had that rebellious underground vibe.
And that style, it resonated, it got imitated. You see it in fashion, music videos, all over the place.
It's become part of our visual language.
It has. But beyond the style, the spectacle at its core, The Matrix is about connection, about fighting for freedom.
Right. It's about believing in yourself, in something bigger, even when everything seems hopeless.
Even when the system is rigged against you. It's a story that reminds us that even in a world dominated by technology, even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit can endure.
It's a powerful message. Now, I'm curious, how do you personally connect to The Matrix? What aspects of the film resonate most strongly with you?
For me, it's the exploration of consciousness and perception. That idea that reality might be a construct, a simulation.
Hmm.
It's both unsettling and kind of liberating at the same time.
I know what you mean. It makes you question everything.
And that's the beauty of it. The Matrix raises these big questions, but it doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you think, draw your own conclusions.
It's a film that invites you to think critically, to challenge your assumptions about the world.
Yeah.
And in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, that ability to think for ourselves, it's more crucial than ever.
It is. It's easy to get swept up in the noise, the distractions. The Matrix reminds us to stay vigilant, to question everything, to seek out the truth.
It's a call to action, almost, to be active participants in shaping our reality, both individually and collectively.
Exactly. And let's not forget the pure entertainment value. It's a thrilling ride, full of mind-bending visuals, incredible action, and a score that gets under your skin.
It's a film that you can watch again and again, and each time you discover something new, something that speaks to you on a different level.
It grows with you, evolving alongside your own understanding of the world.
A true classic.
Speaking of its legacy, what do you think is The Matrix's most enduring contribution? What will it be remembered for?
That's a tough one. But I think it's the film's ability to make us question our reality. It planted this seed of doubt, this awareness that what we perceive as real might not be the whole story.
It opened our minds to other possibilities, to the idea that there might be more going on than meets the eye.
And once you start thinking that way, it's hard to stop. You're left with this sense of wonder, this curiosity about what lies beyond our everyday experience.
It's a legacy of questioning, of seeking truth, of pushing the boundaries of what we believe to be possible.
And that's a pretty powerful legacy, wouldn't you say?
It is, especially for a film that blends action, philosophy, and mind-bending visuals as brilliantly as The Matrix.
It has given us a lot to think about today, that's for sure.
It has. But before we unplug from the Matrix for now, there's one more crucial element we need to explore. It's about the film's vision of the future and how eerily accurate it's become.
It's really mind-blowing how much The Matrix predicted about the future, especially about technology.
Right. It's like they had a crystal ball or something.
I know. I mean, back in '99 when the film came out, the internet was still kind of new for a lot of people. Smartphones. Forget about it. Social media was barely even a thing.
It was a different world. And yet so many of the Matrix's themes, they feel even more relevant now than they did back then.
Exactly. Like, it's not just about the cool visuals and the action anymore. It's about those deeper questions, those anxieties we have about technology, reality, control. They're just amplified now in our hyper-connected world.
It's true. So what are some of the real-world developments that really stand out to you? The things that make you think, whoa, The Matrix called it.
Well, for me, it's the rise of virtual and augmented reality.
Hmm.
The way we're blurring the lines between the physical and digital world, it's happening so fast.
It is. And with all this talk about the metaverse, it's not hard to imagine a future where those lines disappear completely, where we're seamlessly moving between different realities, just like in the Matrix.
Exactly. It's kind of freaky, but also kind of exciting. And then there's artificial intelligence. AI is getting smarter and smarter every day, and it's raising some really big questions, ethical questions, about what it means to be human, about the balance of power between humans and machines.
Questions that the Matrix grappled with over 20 years ago. It's not science fiction anymore. It's something we need to be thinking about seriously as a society.
Right. Like, what happens when AI becomes so advanced that it surpasses human intelligence? It's a whole other can of worms.
It is. And we need to be having those conversations now while we still have some semblance of control before the machines take over, right?
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But seriously, the film's warning about AI, it feels more urgent now than ever. And then there's the whole issue of surveillance and data privacy. That creepy vision of a world where our every move is tracked, our thoughts monitored. It's not so far-fetched anymore.
I know. With all the cameras, the facial recognition technology, the data being collected about us constantly, it can feel like we're living in a panopticon, like Big Brother is always watching.
It makes you question, how much control we really have over our own lives, our own information, our own identities.
And that's one of the things I find so brilliant about The Matrix. It forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths, to examine the trade-offs we're making in this digital age.
It's not just a mindless action flick. It's a film that makes you think. It's a wake-up call. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom, right? The Matrix isn't just a cautionary tale about technology. There's also this element of empowerment, of using technology to fight back, to resist control.
Oh, absolutely. Remember how the rebels used technology to hack into the Matrix, to bend the rules, to create their own spaces of freedom within that digital world?
Right. It's not about rejecting technology altogether.
Yeah.
It's about understanding its power, both the good and the bad, and learning how to use it for good.
To use it to create a better world, a more just world, even within the confines of a system that might be trying to control us.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming our agency. So, we've talked about the technological predictions, but what about the film's message about human potential? It's not just about fighting machines. It's about pushing our limits, believing in ourselves, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Neo, he starts out as this ordinary guy trapped in a mundane existence, but then he discovers he's capable of so much more. He embraces his power, his purpose, and he becomes this symbol of hope, this extraordinary figure who leaves the resistance.
And it's not just Neo, right? Trinity, Morpheus, all the rebels, they're all pushing their limits, fighting for something bigger than themselves.
It's that classic hero's journey,
Yeah.
that universal desire to transcend our limitations, to achieve greatness. And the Matrix reminds us that we all have that potential within us.
I love that. That even in a world that can feel so limiting, so overwhelming, we still have the power to choose our path, to break free, to become more than we ever thought possible.
It's a powerful message, a reminder that we're not just cogs in a machine. We have the power to shape our own destinies, to fight for what we believe in, even when the odds are stacked against us.
And that's what makes The Matrix so timeless, so relevant, even after all these years. It's a story that resonates on so many levels. It's about technology, yes, but it's also about human resilience, about hope, about the power of the human spirit.
It's a film that stays with you long after you've seen it. It makes you think, it makes you question, it makes you want to be a better version of yourself.
Well said. Well, we've journeyed down the rabbit hole, we've explored the philosophy, we've unpacked the prophecies. I think it's safe to say we've done a pretty thorough deep dive into The Matrix.
I'd say so. But like any good deep dive, it leaves you with even more questions than you started with.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's a film that keeps on giving, a film that sparks new conversations every time you watch it. And in a world that's changing so rapidly, a world where technology is evolving faster than we can keep up, those conversations are more important than ever.
They are. So as we unplug from The Matrix for now, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Question everything. Don't take anything for granted. Seek out knowledge, challenge your assumptions, and never be afraid to think for yourself.
I love that. And remember, the future is not set in stone. We have the power to shape it, to create the world we want to live in. So keep those minds open, keep those questions coming, and until next time, stay curious.